everyone. Welcome back to Coding from Nil. This week we are going to cover how we're going to add Google Analytics to our site. Now, it's a relatively simple process, and it's going to give us a lot of information about the types of users that are visiting our site, what sort of browsers they're using, what sort of devices they're using. And this is really important information that we can glean insights into our site from, like, exactly like, what kind of devices they're using, so we can make sure that our website looks good on all those devices, for instance. And there's a whole host of other examples, but let's go ahead and start adding some Google Analytics to our site.
All right, so let's start looking at how we can add Google Analytics to our React application. Now, this is a really nice way for us to gain some insight into how people are accessing our application, where they're accessing our application from, what devices they're using, what browsers they're using. That's really good, especially when we're looking at, like, does our website or our web application look good on these browsers that our users are accessing it from? Are there any issues with those browsers or things like that? Where are people visiting our website from? Should we pay attention to language support for certain regions and things like that? And you can set up all sorts of stuff. We're just going to be going over just kind of the real bare bones basics on how to get this into the application. Now, it's a fairly easy process, so this will be a really quick video. Really what we wanted to start out by doing is visiting analytics.google.com. You should get a page that looks similar to this. And if you click here where it says Start Measuring, it's just going to walk you through how to set up an account. I'm going to just put in some sample stuff here. You could go through all of this. It's going to tell you all about, like, the data sharing options that you have. You can set what you want to measure, whether you're measuring an app or something on the web. Ours would be on the web. And then the property setup is where you'd actually set up what website we're actually going to be getting our analytics data from. Now, right here, we're going to hit a snag with our application right now because we don't have a URL set up because we haven't deployed the application, which we will get to in the next few videos. We'll go through GitHub and how we can deploy it to a couple of different providers. So for now, this is going to be kind of all we'll be able to show. But for this application, but I can show you the live version and kind of some of the data that you'd expect to see. So you'd fill out a website name, the URL, obviously industry category, and what you're going to get is this tag that Google gives you that allows it to keep track of your website. And you basically just pop it right into a script tag at the in the head of our document, which for us would be in the index.html document. Now, this is the actual finished application that I'm looking at right now. So in ours, at this point, we just have from this meta tag down. What we need to add in is this script tag. And when you're actually going through the property setup, it'll actually give you this script tag to just pop right in. It's actually a fairly easy process. But really what the main part of the tag is this number here, which is the ID that Google uses to uniquely identify your website from another website. Now, the issue with this is that this is available, is going to be available, has to be available on the front end of the application. Now, the reason that that can be an issue is you could get some spoofing. Like anyone could come in here, copy this, and it's not going to harm anything. It's just it can throw your analytic data off if somebody pops this into one of their websites, and now Google thinks that, traffic that's coming from another website is actually yours, which in this case would not be. And there's actually a way that we can kind of button down the rules about our Google Analytics setup so that we can make sure that it's only tracking stuff that is coming from the domain of our choice, the domain of our web app or our website that we actually want to be tracked, and not something else. So what we will do now is go ahead and look at how we can do that in the actual interface of the analytics. So what I'm going to do now that we've seen kind of how we put that ID into the head tag so we can uniquely identify the website. What we're going to do now is actually look at the analytics dashboard and see how that ties back, and then how we can kind of button up things on that side to make sure that that the traffic that's coming is actually coming from our website. So I'll go ahead and log into mine, and we'll be right back. So here I am in the dashboard for my Google Analytics account, and you can see I'm not getting like a whole huge amount of traffic to this site at the moment, but it's nice that like you get this nice little snapshot. If you are interested in where bounce rate is or anything like that, you can click on these. It'll tell you a bit more information. It gives you nice little insights about specific channels, like a specific medium, like if things that are coming from a social account maybe has a far less bounce rate than, I don't know, some other means of a referral or whatnot. You can click on like source medium. Like here it's telling me I've got 2 direct. If you have any referrals, it'll tell you where those referrals are coming from. You get some nice graphs and stuff about your the visits to your site over time. Nice little map that tells you where people are visiting your site from, whether they're visiting it on desktop or mobile. And this is just the first thing you'll see on the dashboard. There's a whole host of other information that you can get from this dashboard here. As we'll see, you can look at specific things about the audience, demographics. Like it can kind of tell you, it's probably I don't know how accurate some of these things are, but it can go by like age and gender of the people that are visiting your site. Obviously, their geography, behavior, the technology, like we were talking about before, devices, whether they're what sort of browser or OS they're using, things like that. So there's a whole host of stuff that you can look into and use that information to kind of better make sure that you're targeting your right audience for your website. But the thing that I want to talk about is how do we add some rules to make sure that the data that we're receiving is coming from the URL that we're expecting it to come from. So if you go into the admin and you go to all filters, you can click add a filter. I already have this one called hacking defense. When you click on this, this is what you want to have on this filter to make sure that It's only including stuff from the domain that you want. So I name this filter hacking defense, include, and then take the filter field to host name. And then it's really important here is that when you're putting the filter pattern, you just put in your the domain name with a backslash and then dot. I have this as a .io domain name, but if yours was .com or .org or what have you, you'd put that in the trailing in. And then that's pretty much it for the filter, and you would just hit save. And that would just make sure that if someone pops your that little UID that Google is using to track your site into another site, it won't include that analytical data in your dashboard or any of those other things that you saw when we were going through that, which is really nice because especially if you have a lot of users visiting your site, you really want to make sure that that information is accurate. So that is pretty much it for this one. Like I said, it was going to be a pretty quick one. Just wanted to show how you actually put that Google identifier in the head of our HTML document. How we can make sure, like I said, that people aren't people could still nefariously use that ID, but we can at least block that analytic data from coming through, so that when we look at our dashboard, we're not seeing that coming through. And just kind of a quick overview of that dashboard itself. And that is pretty much it. And we will be setting up that actual domain name in 2 videos from now. We'll actually be deploying this guy. The next video, next week, we'll be digging into GitHub, how we can put this on GitHub, because that makes deploying and a continuous deployment setup, which we'll be doing, much easier. And so that will be next week, and then we'll start deploying this sucker on a couple of different hosting sites. So really excited about that, and I will see you all next week.